Hey guys, this is the Old English D podcast for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. I'm back. I have returned. Had quite the week last week. One of those situations where I just kept saying to myself, I'll get to it this day. I'll try to squeeze it in here. I'll try to work it in at this point. Maybe it'll just be a little late. And it got to a point where I just had to say, you know what, I'm gonna rain check it this week, and we're gonna come back next week, and we're gonna get back on track. Was out of town Monday, Tuesday for a work trip down to Kansas City. It was hot as heck. It was fantastic. It was a great trip. And then I had a lot of work related stuff going on Wednesday, Thursday, and then was out of town over to the east side of the state for the weekend. Actually got home Sunday and ended up making it out to a ball game on Saturday, which timing it with school start was awesome. I'll get into that a little bit here as we go. But in there was just I could not cram a podcast recording in. So you get me today. I will hopefully recap a little bit of what we've had going on, but it's been a busy week, both for the Detroit Tigers and for myself. As I was saying, this is the Detroit Tigers podcast named Old English D. You can find us on any of your social media platforms. You can find us on any of your podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, and the like. We appreciate anybody that gives us a follow, gives us a review. It is much appreciated. But what do we make of this team at this point? Since I last recorded, we've had quite the revelation. The team has made it over 500, which is a fantastic mark to hit here in the month of August and now into September. They lost their game tonight to the San Diego Padres, 3-0, bringing them back to 70 and 69. But it needs to be stated that the team has really rounded into a little bit of form here recently. Looking back at their record going into the month of July, we weren't feeling it. The trade deadline was going on. There was a lot of questions. Canna, Flaherty, Chafin, Carson Kelly was gone. We were dealing with a lot of changes. It was a lot of just a feel of, well, there was another year down the drain. The team comes out and, or I guess this is the end of June. I apologize. But that being said, the month of July and August, the team going 14-11 in July and 17-11 in August. Quite the turnaround. You have to look and see in the month of August just the resiliency of this team and the heart and the grit to take a team that had two starting pitchers, pretty much two traditional starting pitchers, to go 17-11, have a plus 25 run differential in the month of August, and to win as many games like they did. It's a huge credit to the bullpen, first and foremost. All of the guys that have come up from AAA that have pitched their hearts out, all of the guys that were on the team that are maybe filling a different role than they thought they would. Guys like Foley, Holton, Shelby Miller, Will Vest, guys like that who thought they'd be back at the end of the bullpen options only. Now they're kind of being forced to, really become a chameleon and do whatever the team needs pitching wise. And then the bulk guys, you have to just look and see what they've done. The bulk guys, when you think of those guys, it's Herter, it's Gunther, it's Salmons. Salmons down in the minors. He should be back at some point this year, I would assume. Kenta's been a lot better out of the bullpen, not the best. Joey Wentz before he was DFA'd, RIP Joey Wentz. Just any of those guys you think of, and now looking at Ty Madden, he pitched today. He pitched very well. to be able to do the things that this team has accomplished now, being over 500, and I'm not going to get into it too much, but I'll speak on it very briefly. But to be able to put themselves into the fringes of a wild card conversation, it's pretty incredible. A lot of credit goes to the guys that performed it, but also to AJ for piecing this together. And I've complained a lot about the over engineering of this bullpen, the overuse of some of the moves that have been made, maybe too analytical, whatever the case may be. But that's really what it's taken to kind of piece together this pitching staff the last month and a half. Fetter working with all of these guys, whether they're coming up from Toledo, whether they're guys that have been here that are kind of having to come up with a new even just pitch sequencing, working with a new catcher and Dingler halfway through the year. It's pretty incredible work. Chris Fetter, Juan Nieves, just the whole coaching staff has done a spectacular job. The offense still remains streaky. I think it's pretty solid. I can say that pretty solidly. It's a young team. You look at guys that have gotten hot. You think of Parker Meadows. You think of Colt Keith, Jace Young when he first came up. All of those guys hitting hot. It really buoyed the team. You start having guys like Colt Keith, Riley Green start to have rougher stretches. They're still trying to figure out major league pitching. The fact that Jace Young hit as well as he did the first 2 weeks of his career, it just shows how teams have now started to adjust, and that give and take, that that give and take, probably is just the best way to put it. Just ebb and flow. There it is. It really shows what it takes to be great in Major League Baseball, and it's not. It's very simple just to be consistent. I can sit here and say that, but for Colt Keith, Spencer Torkelson, for Kerry Carpenter to come up and just to do the same things and have the same amount of success day in, day out, it's very, very hard. That's what makes guys like Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani doing the things that they're doing, with the amount of power they're hitting for, stolen bases, all of that. Just that much more incredible to be able to do that consistently over the full 162 games. The Tigers, as we speak right now, and I apologize, my phone shut down. So that's sick. Here we go. Standings. As it stands currently, the Tigers are 9.5 games out of first place in the AL Central. Currently 5 games back of the Kansas City Royals for third place. In the wild card, they are currently sitting 5 games back of the Royals, who hold that final wild card spot. They are tied with the Mariners for that spot and a half game behind the Red Sox. So only a half game separating the next 3 in line for a wild card spot. Here we are. This podcast will be releasing September 3rd on an off day for the Tigers, and we will be within six games of a wild card spot with a month to go. It's tall odds, no matter what way you stack it. Teams like the teams that currently hold the 3 wild card spots are Baltimore, Minnesota, and Kansas City. That's a tall order for any of those opponents. Even if you look at teams like Seattle and Boston, who we have played well in this second half, and even over the course of the year, it's still a tall order. You look at the teams that we have to play left this year. Yes, we have a pretty decently easy schedule, and we play games against teams that we're looking up against, or we're looking up at. You look at the Orioles, we're playing 6 games against them in the next month. You look at the Royals, we've got 3 on the road versus them. Even the Padres are a comparable team to some of these teams that we're going to go up against. Today showed the fact that the Tigers have to play almost perfectly from here on out to even remain in this conversation. And we all know how well the Tigers have played Kansas City and teams like Minnesota this year. They haven't. So I would like to kind of give my thought on this whole wildcard race. I am so pleasantly surprised that we are in the position that we are in, kind of taking into account where we were earlier this year, where we were in the month of June and July, and the injuries that we've had to deal with, the way the pitching staff's been handled, and the struggles there. But to be able to be in this position is incredible. For the Detroit Tigers to be playing somewhat meaningful baseball in the month of September is such a step forward and such a positive outcome for the year, no matter what way this goes the rest of the way. Even if we end up right around 500 and not really competing for the wild card moving forward, this year has shown so much more to the fans, to the organization, to the players. This is what it can be like. And hopefully, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, hopefully this is a wake-up call for Chris Ilitch. Hey, you've invested in the last 2 years, post Erod, post Javi, you've invested a minimal amount in this team. You've given a decent contract to Kenta Maeda. You gave a decent contract to Jack Flaherty. You gave next to nothing for every other free agent that we've signed. I'm probably missing somebody. And this is where we're at. We're your coach in your coaching staff and your managers are really just duct tape and chewing gumming their way into, the fringes of a playoff hunt. A hunt for a playoff spot. If we were to invest in pitching, if we were to invest in veteran bats, whatever the case may be, whoever you want to talk about, where could this team be right now? Now, I'm not saying I disagree with the way that things were handled. I think if you're wanting to develop your young prospects into major league hitters, you got to let them hit. And this development was necessary this year. And you have to give them the at-bats. I do think that's what Scott Harris's original intent was going into this year is, if they hit, great. If they don't, we're going to learn. We're going to figure things out. If we're competing, great. If we're not, we're going to use it as another year of development. Obviously, you think that the team's going to take a step forward with the pitching being as good as it is and having a guy like Tarek Skubal at the top of your rotation. But now is the time. You have to look at this team moving forward, moving past this year, because odds are they're not making the playoffs this year. They're not grabbing one of those wild card spots. We won't be playing in the playoffs. You have to look forward past that and say, how do we use this as a platform this year and to improve further? How do we take the next step? Because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take another step forward. And you have to think about all the other teams, how all the other teams are going to be improving. How are they going to do it? How are we going to do it? How are we going to combat that? Moving into next year, you have to look at this pitching staff. You have to look at the way that it's built. How are we going to want to construct it? Are we going to want to continue to ride this bullpen the way that they have? Do we need to invest in a true closer? From that side of things, I think there's a few decent options out there in the free agent market that you can go and get and try to develop into another Jack Flaherty. Maybe Jack Flaherty will be out there. We went over those options with Clay Snowden a few episodes ago, but that's one way that you can improve this team, is to provide more stability on the pitching side. But the main thing you're going to be looking for is more consistency from the offense. There are a lot of really interesting pieces, a lot of really interesting bats on this team right now. You look at guys like Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, who has come back from the minor leagues and looked pretty okay. He's streaky, but he's starting to do the things that we're wanting him to do, where, he swings at more pitches in general and is hitting for power again. Great to see from him. But he's intriguing. You look at guys like Jace Young, Super interesting bat. Trey Sweeney has been adequate at shortstop. That's intriguing to me. Parker Meadows has looked the part ever since coming back from the IL. He has looked just incredibly dynamic on defense and on the base paths. When he gets on base, and he's getting on base quite a bit recently, he is a game changer. That's very intriguing to me. And then you look at guys down that list a little bit further. You look at guys like Justin Henry Malloy, other guys, Dylan Dingler. From an offensive standpoint, he can take a step forward. That's all fantastic. That's a great thing to have in your back pocket, is a lot of potential. A lot of potential guys that have great experience now moving forward. You have guys who have 2+ months of major league experience. They're not going to walk into opening day next year saying, I've never been here before. You're going to have some solid guys that have been in the majors and know what they're doing. That's fantastic. How are you going to improve that? We cannot go into another offseason with this offense and rely totally on a fringe bat ad like a Mark Canha or a Gio Urshela and the increasingly sustainable or unsustainable development of your offensive prospects. We've seen how it worked this year. Carey out injured. You can't depend on him. For whatever it's worth, we couldn't depend on him this year when he's come back. There's been ups and downs. Torkelson, you wanted to depend on him. You thought he could take another step forward after 30 home runs last year. Clearly, that hasn't worked. Riley is hurt again. We're going to have to see another full year of Riley Green. And then all of these other rookies. Colt Keith. Great, interesting bat. But the league has figured out a little something against him here in the month of August, September. He's got to make that counter adjustment again and figure it out. So you don't know for sure 100% what you're going to get out of Colt Keith either. We have to have some sort of offensive addition to this team, either by trade or by free agent, that makes this team more consistent offensively. Able to score runs, able to produce runs. You love the things that this Tigers team does when they're clicking, but they don't click every single day. They don't click consistently game over game. And that's got to be solved. That's got to be fixed. It's the greatest thing that's holding this team back right now, because run prevention is at an all-time low, which is a good thing. And you look at the teams that they've played, and yeah, they haven't been great, but they're winning the games that they're supposed to win because they're being carried by their pitching. So that's kind of my thought process at this point. Is I'm grateful to be where we're at. We're talking about meaningful baseball in September. It's not going to last more than likely. So we need to take what we can from this situation, use it towards next year, and move on. Because there are some things that we're going to really have to get figured out if we're going to compete in the year 2025 as well as 2024. Competing. Right now, when I think of the word competing in this team, it's Tarik Skubal. Now, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to his start on Saturday with some friends and my wife and my daughter. It was a little warm there in the upper deck, and I think that the game got quite a bit more enjoyable as it went on. Anybody who remembers the game on Saturday against the Red Sox, it's a 2-1 victory for the Tigers, and it was a gem thrown by Tarik Skubal. Now, I was at this game, so I'm kind of partial to this start in particular, but for him to be able to go 8 innings and for him to be able to do the things that he did after giving up the O'Neill home run in the first, it was by far my favorite start of the year from Skubal. His total line score on Saturday was 8 innings, 4 hits allowed, 1 earned run, 8 strikeouts, no walks. Lowering his ERA to 2.51, leading the AL currently in that. And I'm going to pull up these statistics because that's all that everybody's talking about. And, understandably so. Tarek Skubal, after his start on Saturday, is looking more and more likely to be able to win the American League Cy Young, which is an incredible feat and truly a feather in the cap of the Detroit Tigers development. But let us see here. I apologize. I'm pulling up stats as we speak. American League. All right. American League. Innings pitched leaders. Tarek Skubal sitting at 5th place with 168 innings pitched, which is huge for him this year, coming off of injuries and all of that. But the stats that we really care about. Strikeouts. Tarek Skubal is currently the only pitcher in Major League Baseball over the 200 strikeout mark. Currently sitting at 201. The nearest competition for that is Cole Reagans from the Kansas City Royals. He is sitting 4 behind at 197. Earned run average leaders for qualified pitchers. Tarek Skubal, like I said, is sitting at a 2.51. The nearest competitor there is Ronel Blanco of the Houston Astros, sitting at 3.03. So a full half run ahead. If he continues to pitch average baseball, he should have zero problem with the earned run average. And then win-loss. Everybody said it's a meaningless stat, doesn't mean anything. Once you start talking about the Triple Crown, it starts to mean a lot more to a lot more people. Tarek Skubal currently sitting at 16 wins with his win on Saturday. Nearest competition for that is a 3-way tie between Jose Barrios of the Blue Jays, Seth Lugo of the Royals, and Carlos Rodon of the Yankees. They're all sitting at 14, which is 2 wins behind Skubal. At this juncture, sitting here as I record on September 2nd, it really seems like the strikeouts is going to be the thing. It's going to be the thing that holds him back. If he's to look at this Triple Crown, like a lot of people think that he can win. When you zoom out a little further and you look at MLB stats, and you look at MLB, the all of Major League Baseball Triple Crown, not just the American League, he is currently still leading in wins. Chris Sale is coming up on him with 15 wins, so he's only 1 behind there. Earned run average, Sale is also still there, having a fantastic campaign in his own right for the Braves, sitting at 2.58, which is just 7 points behind Skubal. So really tight there as well. And then strikeouts, Chris Sale also sitting just 4 strikeouts back. And as an update to that, I did not realize that Cease pitched yesterday. So he is now tied with Skubal for the lead in Major League Baseball in strikeouts at 201. So Major League Baseball, Cy Young, still in play, or Triple Crown rather, still in play, but a lot tougher than the American League right now. He's competing against more pitchers. It makes sense. But to be able to watch him in person on Saturday was a treat. I truly didn't mind watching the Tigers only score 2 runs, because every time that Skubal walked out to the mound, there was this feeling in the stadium of no matter what happens in this inning, they're probably not scoring and probably not getting on base. He was able to turn up the strikeout numbers as well as the game went on, and to end the game on a 99-mile-an-hour fastball strikeout to Rafaela, just Justin Verlander levels of stuff going on. And it's so much fun to watch a pitcher in the Tigers uniform do that, especially for me, a guy that I've loved watching since he was in Erie, a guy that I really have liked and wanted to succeed. To see him do it for this team that's really growing and rounding into form here, it's something special to watch. I've truly enjoyed it. It's been surreal at times. And the energy and like I said to start this segment, the competitiveness is just, it's so much fun, and you just want to run through a brick wall for him. There's not many more metaphors that I can come up with to describe the way that his pitching truly makes me feel. Just so much fun to watch, and hopefully he can keep up this pace for the next 3 weeks. It should be interesting. Going over as we move on here to our last segment, moving forward, transactions. There has been a few transactions. I thought it would be good to kind of update those since the last time we had a podcast here. Let us see here. Going back to the 23rd of August, the Tigers recalled Ryan Kreidler, so he's with the team related to that. Javier Baez went on the 10-day injured list with lumbar, spine, and hip inflammation. Seems like that hip of Javi's hip and his back seemed to be a lingering issue over the last couple of years. I'd like to be able to point to that and say that that's the reason why he's struggled, but I don't know. I truly don't know anymore with him. His future as a Detroit Tiger is surely kind of in jeopardy moving forward. The injury woes now becoming a bigger issue for him. Hopefully he's able to come back from this and truly get some stuff figured out. A few days later, on August 26th, the Tigers recalled Mason Englert from the Toledo Mud Hens. They used him as an opener that next day, and he was fantastic. I don't know if it was the next day, actually, but his one outing, he was an opener, and he looked really, really good. He looked like he had some stuff figured out. I'm interested to see how he continues to develop and evolve over the next year. Still super young. It was a Rule 5 pick last year, so a little bit of a disjointed development, but a guy that I'm still interested in watching. Also on that day, the Tigers called up Ty Madden to make his Major League debut, and he's looked pretty good so far. I've kind of liked what I've seen from him. Also in that same move, someone had to go down to Toledo. There's 2 pitching moves made that day, Englert and Madden, and they had to pick 2 guys. One guy was Will Vest, who went on the paternity list for the birth of his child, which was awesome to see. And then Brian Sammons had to be optioned, which kind of a bummer because he's been kind of a bullpen workhorse for this team recently. And then that same day, to make room for Ty Madden on the 40-man, Javier Baez was was moved to the 60-day injured list, effectively ending his season. He had season-ending surgery as well with that. So again, a lot of question marks there for Javier Baez. And then a few days later, Mason Englert was optioned to Toledo to make room for Will Vest, who came back from the paternity list. Casey Mize is back. He's made a start, and he has looked pretty, for a guy coming off of Tommy John and a guy that dealt with another injury on top of that to his leg, to his hamstring, I believe. He is as expected. I'm excited to see how he looks moving forward into next year. I think that's super important for his development, is to have a full off season of, he's gotten some work in, not a super heavy workload this year, and to work up to being full speed going into 2025. In order to make room for Casey Mize on the 40-man roster, the Tigers made the move to designate Joey Wentz for assignment. Just a lot of thoughts about Joey Wentz. I mean, he wasn't awful this year. They've found a way to utilize him in a way that kind of complemented his strengths. He actually, I think, figures some stuff out for himself in the offseason. They protected him this year in the way they used him, but they also didn't baby him. They when they let him go, they let him go, and they let him pitch and kind of made him wear errors, and if he pitched decently well. I hope that he finds somewhere that he can thrive, because I think his time in Detroit is done. I know a permanent decision has not been made on that. But happy trails to Joey Wentz, longtime Tiger. Some people thought it was too long, but along with that, the Tigers transferred Alex Faedo from the 15-day injured list to the 60-day injured list with a right shoulder strain, also ending Faedo's season. So giving some of these younger guys just the option to pitch more, to get some more innings under their belt, and to develop further under Chris Fetter, which is pretty cool. Hopefully Faedo will be back soon. He's had kind of an up and down year, but I'm excited to see how the pitching staff shapes up and if Alex Faedo has a spot in it next year. Looking forward to this week. We have a West Coast trip. We already one game in. Like I said, the Tigers lost their opener against the Padres 3-0. Listless offense. Hopefully that doesn't carry over. An off day tomorrow. Odd off day, but I'm assuming they wanted to get a game in on Labor Day to capitalize on some folks being off, being able to get to the ballpark. Day off on Tuesday the 3rd, and then going forward, 2 more against the Padres, a couple of night games, late night games for us here on the East Coast, and then they have 3 against the Oakland Athletics in Oakland. The final time the Tigers will visit O.CO Stadium, or the Coliseum in Oakland. Should be kind of interesting, that series there. I told a couple people this week, the Padres, if the Tigers can salvage 1 at the very least from the Padres and then sweep the A's, I think we'll call that a successful road trip. The last big road trip of the year for the Tigers, to be able to come out of it with a winning record, I think is kind of important for whatever development and things. Second to last road trip overall, and then an off day on Monday after to get home to play the Rockies next week. So interesting stuff. I'm very content watching Tigers baseball right now. It's a lot of interest in how the team performs, interest in how a lot of these young guys perform, and to be in September and to kind of scoreboard watch a little bit, kind of keep an eye on the standings. It's something that I've not been used to in a long time, and it's very refreshing. And I'm trying not to get ahead of myself, because obviously odds are against us here, but to kind of continue to foster that development and growth and to continue to get better, I think it's made this team interesting moving forward, no matter what you think. So that should be all I have. Kind of an abbreviated pod, trying to get caught up here, get us back on track. I will be back next week releasing the pod, hopefully before the Rocky series. Hopefully we come back to our winning road trip. Should be pretty fun. My name is Josh. You can follow me on Twitter at passionfruit. It's at PASCHENFRUIT. You can follow the podcast at Old English D on any of your social media platforms. And if you have any questions, if you want us to go over anything, I think I'm going to try to have Clay back on here pretty soon. I really enjoyed talking to him. Hopefully before the end of the year, I can get him back on. If you have any questions for Clay or myself, feel free to DM me, ask me on one of our posts. We will be sure to get it in. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. I appreciate it. Have an amazing week, and go Tigers, guys.